Okay, hi everyone, welcome back, and in this update we are going to check out ICP's price chart and see what is going on in the short term. And a spoiler alert, I don't really believe that we are having a whole lot to be worried about, but in case you are new to the altcoin market, I fully understand why are you worried, and we are going to talk about what is happening in terms of Wave's structures in the short term. But before we get into all that, we got quite a bit to talk about, because in today's video I want to talk about this very important piece published by the man himself, Mr. Dominic Williams. And if you care about the fundamentals of the projects that you are investing in, well, I think you should definitely give this one a read yourself. I think you are going to find a lot of fascinating points in this article. But if you don't want to and you are busy, you know what, that's absolutely fair enough. I am going to try to explain to you why this is like such an important piece, at least in my opinion. So are we ready? Let's dive in and see what is going on. And first things first, Dominic in this article talks about a couple of very important problems that we all in the internet computer community have been talking about for quite some time. And the core problem from Dominic's point of view is this: Definity was too much like a research lab, and I think we can actually all agree with this pretty much. You see, in this article, Dominic mentions that Definity has been acting more like a research institute than a tech company, and that means lots of great innovation, great cool technology, but not necessarily enough focus on building real products that normal people can actually use. And he even compared Definity's structure to projects like Solana Labs or maybe Avalanche Labs. And these are for-profit companies that move faster because they are chasing growth, not necessarily research goals. So what's the fixing here? Well, Dominic calls this thing Definity 2.0, and I don't really know what is like the obsession about calling every single step 2.0, 3.0. I don't really get it, but you know, it's a name that they are coming up with. I guess it's fine. Basically, he's turning the foundation into something more agile, and that probably means fewer layers of management, faster decision making, and more focus on user experience and products that can actually compete in the market and make them some real money. And the idea is to more act like a startup and a whole lot less like a slow-moving research organization, which is what we love to see from ICP in the future. Now, in the next part of the article, Dominic talks about their new strategy, which is called Build for Profit Growth Engines. This is where things get quite interesting in my view. You see, instead of Definity trying to do every single thing itself, they are planning to spin off independent for-profit companies that can focus on specific products and grow very much aggressively. And in this piece, Dominic actually points to Ethereum model here. And in case you don't know, Ethereum actually has Consensus, which is that company behind MetaMask and Infura, which are two products that basically made Ethereum very much mainstream. Now, ICP is from this point moving forward about to do the same thing, very much similar. And the first example in this direction, I think you all know it, it is called Caffeine, which in case you are a new viewer and you don't really know what am I talking about, Caffeine is essentially a platform that lets people build applications, websites, or even enterprise systems just by talking to an artificial intelligence. And get this, Dominic said that he personally stepped in to rebuild Caffeine himself, working 996 style, meaning he was working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, which is kind of sort of insane. And that's literally how serious he is about all this. And the whole point of Caffeine AI is let's call it actually something like an easy button for the internet computer. You don't really have to know and understand code. You just describe what you want and artificial intelligence builds it for you directly and fully on chain, which is great. And the main goal in here obviously is going to be a scalability, not just in technology itself, but also very much in user adoption as well, because millions of people could literally start without really knowing a whole lot about coding, and they can talk to artificial intelligence and create applications without writing a single line of code, which is insane. And that's actually why, in my view, Caffeine is going to be quite successful, especially because their pricing are actually kind of sort of competitive and they're not really an expensive product. I think Caffeine could hopefully in the mid to long term bring quite a lot of adoption towards ICP's way. Now, Dominic in this piece also mentioned other projects like, for example, Utopia and Convo. We are going to talk about this thing actually in another video, and these are also planned to operate as for-profit ventures, and the key idea is that these projects can raise their own money, promote themselves, and push for growth in a way that Definity Foundation cannot really do alone. So this, my friends, is the plan for Definity moving forward in the next coming years. And personally, I actually believe that this is really, really good for them, and it will hopefully cause the ecosystem to grow big time. Now, let's talk about narrative real quick, because obviously in the crypto market, we have a couple of very important narrative, and ICP, I think we can all say, is mainly active in the AI narrative. And Dominic also talked about this specific one in this piece, and the main point that he made was this. He said, we are basically not positioning ourselves as just another blockchain or DeFi platform. No, he's calling this a self-writing cloud, meaning a decentralized cloud where AI literally builds and updates applications automatically. And here is the logic for you. In the near future, I'm going to say probably in the next 2-3 years, most applications are not really going to be written by developers. No, they will probably, all of them, I'm going to say, be created by artificial intelligence, and the developers will just be regular people giving instructions in natural language. But here is the problem. You see, traditional Web 2 platforms like, for example, AWS or Replit, they are not really built for this. They come with all sorts of limitations, including number one, you are locked into their ecosystem. Number two, security depends on human teams who simply cannot manage millions of AI generated applications. And number three, when artificial intelligence updates an application, it can easily mess up the data, sometimes even permanently. And ICP claims to fix all that because it's actually decentralized and there is no vendor locking here going on, meaning apps truly belong in their owners. And also it is absolutely 100% tamper proof, meaning applications cannot simply be stopped or hacked in a normal way. And also, I forgot actually to talk about this. There is like a very unique feature in here called orthogonal persistence. Basically, this feature actually guarantees when artificial intelligence updates a code, no user data will get lost, and that is a huge deal technologically. So essentially, and in conclusion for this part, what we are seeing here in my view is quite a massive repositioning. Dominic Williams in this article is screaming that they are just not competing with blockchains anymore. Now, from this point moving forward, they are going to go after the entire cloud computing market built around artificial intelligence. And let's actually talk about that, because I think this is really the key part of today's video, which will lead to what I'm about to tell you, and in my view, we should all as ICP investors care about. So here's the thing. You see, up until now, ICP has been seen mostly as a blockchain for developers or crypto native builders. But the 2.4 trillion cloud computing market, well, that's actually the real price in here. And to reach it, Dominic's plan is actually very simple. And at the same time, in my view, it is going to be extremely effective. The plan is this. Basically hide the crypto side of stuff completely. And he openly says that big companies do not really want to deal with buying ICP tokens or managing cycles just to deploy an applications. They want something very much familiar, something that looks like AWS or Google Cloud, and here is the plan to provide such a situation. He says, we are going to come up with a new product called Cloud Engines. Think of it like this. A company logs into a dashboard, configures its own private subnet on the internet computer, and pays with, pay attention, a credit card, and that is like the really key point. All the crypto mechanics happen in the background at the same time, but to the users themselves, this is going to feel like that they are using a next-gen cloud platform, and you're not really going to have any wallets, any tokens, or any frictions in the front. All of these things are going to happen in the background, and I think this is actually going to work because it positions ICP as a direct competitor to AWS, but with the added benefits of blockchain, including number one, you know it, tamper-proof applications. Number two, built-in security already, and number three, permanent data. So this is essentially going to be the bridge between Web3 infrastructure and enterprise world. And if this takes off, I think this could really onboard real-world companies at a scale big time without really them even realizing that they are using crypto. Now, let's talk about the real plan that we talked about earlier that every single investor should care about, and it is called a deflationary tokenomic overhaul. Now, if you do not care about any of their plans, I think this part is where you should pay very much close attention. You see, I actually love that Dominic didn't really avoid the elephant in the room, which is ICP's inflation problem. And if you go back, let's say maybe 6 months ago, when in ICP we were somewhere around $4.5 area, we talked about the inflation problem, and we were saying as we go down in ICP, at the same time, inflation actually increases because they're not really fully profitable yet. And right now, new ICP tokens are consistently being minted to pay node providers and staking rewards. And that potentially can be a source of selling pressure. But Dominic's new plan is actually a total reset, and he calls it Mission 70. And the goal is to cut inflation by 70% in 2026 and potentially make ICP deflationary forever. Now, question, how does he plan to do that? Well, there are two very, very important big changes in here coming for ICP in the future. Number one is going to be cutting staking rewards and also shortening lockups. The old 8-year neuron system will be replaced by, let's say, a shorter 1 to 2 year options with very much lower rewards, and that is going to reduce token emission dramatically, and it's going to make hopefully staking more flexible for everybody. Change number two, which I think is actually a bit more important than the other one, is going to be redesigning the node provider model. You see, instead of paying a node operator with new ICP tokens, the new model suggests that we should be completely market driven, meaning each cloud engine is going to generate real revenue from usage, and 80% of that revenue goes to node providers and 20% will get burned effective immediately. And if you don't really understand what all these mean, it basically means that the more activity we are going to have on the network, the more ICP is going to get permanently removed from circulation. And this is hopefully going to, in the future, completely change the inflation model that we have been talking about for quite some time. And again, like we said it earlier, this all depends on the other plans that they are having and how successful they are going to be implementing them. Personally, I'm actually quite optimistic. So, to wrap it up, there are a couple of very, very important points in this piece. Point number one, Definity is transforming from a slow research-heavy foundation into an agile, product-driven tech company. Point number two, they are spinning off new ventures like Caffeine to attract users, not just developers. Point number three, they are launching cloud engines to quietly onboard enterprise clients. This is really the key point, pay attention, with credit cards, not crypto wallets. And final point, if they are going to be successful, well, okay, this is going to completely overhaul tokenomics to make ICP hopefully deflationary forever. And if they can pull it off, well, okay, let me ask you this. Why shouldn't we be in the future much more bullish on ICP? I'm telling you right now, if I see signs that suggest they are actually right on the track to achieve all their goals, well, okay, in the next year, if we are going to end up having a bit of a bear market, you better believe that around the lows, I'm just going to ICP big time. And as we go lower, I'm just going to add more and more ICP token to my portfolio and basically wait for the next bull run. So in terms of fundamentals, I think this piece for now at least is going to be the most important one about ICP. And please, if you got time and if you care about the fundamentals of the project that you are investing in, I would highly suggest to just give this one a read yourself. I know it is actually quite a long piece, but trust me, it's definitely worth it. So having said all that, let's go on the live chart and see what is going on. And if you remember, the last time that we talked about internet computer, we were, right around this area, and the idea was that this can be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wave impulsive structure. I think the last time that we talked about ICP, we were in here, and the idea was that, well, okay, we can say maybe this is 1, 2, 3. We can have correction for 4, another move down into wave 5, which isn't really going to be a bad sign, because overall in internet computer, I'm thinking about from the highs having a correction structure in form of, you know it, an A, B, C zigzag. And in terms of the subwaves, if you are a regular viewer of the channel, I think you know what I'm about to say. Excuse me. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave down into a correction for wave B. We can consider different patterns for it. Let's say maybe like an ABC zigzag. Again, not that important. And then another 5 down into wave C. Now, let's go on the live chart and see what happened in this area. So here's the deal. In my view, not to about this point, but I'm going to argue probably, yes, maybe to about this point is going to be the end of our wave 2. Good move down into wave 3, correction for 4, another move down into wave 5. And this can be considered as the end of our first impulse on the downside. Potentially, let's just delete the subwaves into a larger degree wave A. Let's just even delete this one. Followed by that, we had a correction in this phase, and yes, it is in my view going to be in form of an A, B, C flat to about this point and not the highest high in here. And this is probably another 5 wave down into our wave C, and on a higher degree, I still believe this is going to be into a wave 4. You see, let's go on H1 time frame. So my primary scenario in internet computer suggests that we are having off of the lowest low. And by the way, this chart is from TradingView, and the lowest low in here is about $1.8. If you go on Binance's chart, I think it's about $1.6. If you go on Coinbase's chart, it's around $1.9. Generally, we are having the lows in here about $2 area. And I think off of it, we have a beautiful 5-wave up, followed by a correction down, probably to about this point into our wave 2. And this is a beautiful looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-wave impulsive structure up into our wave 3. And the current move down, in my view, at least according to my primary case, is going to be into our wave 4, meaning what's next? You know it, another good move on the upside into our wave 5. Now, here's a question. Was our wave 2 in here actually a rather deep correction? Let's just analyze it and see what happened in here in terms of Fibonacci's. And let's put the Fibonacci from the lows to the height of our wave 1. As you can see, we retraced to about, let's say, even less than our 50 level. So what's the point that I'm trying to make? It doesn't really seem like that this is that much of a deep correction down in internet computer. Now, why is this thing so important, and why am I talking about it? You see, whenever you are having a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave up, if your wave 2 is a deep correction, and by the way, we call a corrective movement a deep one when we retrace to at least around, let's say, the 78% level. When you're having a deep correction, you can argue that wave 4, number 1, it's not really going to be that deep, and number 2, most likely it's just going to take some time, maybe let's say more than the length of our wave 2 timing wise, and then we are going to have another move up into wave 5. However, in ICP, it seems like that we are basically having the opposite situation, meaning your wave 2 in here isn't actually that much of a deep correction. So makes sense to say that our wave 4 should be kind of strong and maybe even to a degree sharp move on the downside, which is going to scare a lot of people. And guess what? This is literally what we are getting in internet computer. Let me be very clear. In my view, there's like a very, very high chance that this is going to end up being a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And even if you believe this is like the beginning of the next leg of the bear market in internet computer, and I am absolutely wrong, and you want to sell ICP right now, well, okay. do we all agree that nothing is going to go up or down in a straight line? If you agree with that, which is basically the fundamental of the market, well, okay, I think we can safely assume so far we have only been going down, meaning from the highs to about the lows. Let's just actually measure this move real quick. So far we have seen about a 47% move on the downside, and at one point naturally we are going to have some sort of a pullback and get to about these areas, at least about $8 to $9, if you believe that the top for ICP is already in. Now, if you believe that, well, okay, isn't it really best to just be a bit more patient and wait for this pullback in order for you to get out of the market, at least around these prices and not around the lows? Because I honestly do not really think that getting out of your positions right in here is necessarily a good idea, especially after something like a 48% drop. And trust me, these types of moves on the downside in a bull run are absolutely 100% normal. So if you're just saying that because in ICP we have seen a 40% drop, this means that we have entered a bear market, may I suggest think again. Why? Simple reason. Let's go on Zcash's chart and even measure the recent phase on the downside and see just how big of a move was it actually. From the highs, about, let's say, $750 in Zcash, we essentially, as you can see, recently got a 44% move on the downside. And what happened next? We started bouncing a little bit, consolidated, and then we got like a rather sharp move on the upside, and we basically completely covered this move. Is this thing like the only example? Nope is the answer. And let's just even check this short-term move on the downside, which terrified a lot of people. Let's just measure it from the highs to about the lows. This is also about a 45% drop. How about maybe this one from the highs to about the lows? This is like a 37% drop. How about this one? This thing right in here, this is about a 34% drop. So essentially, as you can see, having big moves on the downside in a bull run are absolutely normal, okay? This is literally the altcoin season for you. And if you are new to the market, I fully understand why you should be maybe a little bit worried. But again, you believe in one of these two things. You either think that in ICP, we are going to completely recover and go for higher highs. Well, okay, in that case, I don't really believe that you are a seller around these prices, and makes perfect sense to not to be a seller. On the other hand, you might believe that again, in ICP, our bull run is over. Well, okay. In that case, just be patient and wait for a retrace on the upside in order to get to these levels. And then, fair enough, you can sell your tokens and get out of the market. I wish you nothing but more and more success in your personal life. Now, from my POV, in internet computer, again, I'm gonna say it, this is a correction structure, and after it's over, we are going to get a move on the upside, and maybe we are not going to get our move up immediately, and maybe we're just going to have a retrace and then consolidate in this area some more. But overall, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. Around these prices, I think I should just hold my tokens and wait for probably much higher prices, at least like 150% to even 200% away from the current one. Now, every single analyst at any given moment should be able to come up with a bullish and also a bearish count at the same time. And well, so far we have only talked about the bullish scenarios. What about a bit of a bearish count suggesting, yeah, you know what, maybe I am absolutely 100% right. In that scenario, I need to see two things. Number one, I need to see a continuation of the move down in order to have overlapping of the waves between this face down and also this one, which the top of it is about, let's say, $3.8. Now, you might say, well, okay, isn't this a little bit late? I think it might be. And that brings me to point number two. In ICP, as long as we are staying above this very important level, which the lower band of it is about, let's say, $4.8, I think we are good to go up. But if we start going under this level and then we do a consolidation and then we get another move on the downside, well, unfortunately, that is going to be a bit of a different story. At that point, I might actually flip bearish in the short term in internet computer and call number one for either some more downward price action, or number two for recovery phase to take quite some time. and basically tell you, look, if you want to be bullish in ICP, you just have to be more and more patient. Bottom line, as long as we are staying above this level, I don't really believe that we are having anything to be worried about. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in ICP. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.